Okay, yeah, thank you, Martin.
Yeah, ask them to do these. Start recording.
Yeah, I can just. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I could count, Jeff. Are we ready to be recording?
No, Jeff's just, Jeff will let us know when they're starting.
Okay. Okay. Welcome, members, to the meeting. Welcome those members of the public and press who have joined us this evening by YouTube. We are hosting a live stream of our proceedings this evening. Members, if you'd like to remove your jackets, you may do so. Good evening, members. Before we begin, I need to go over the usual housekeeping rules. There are no fire drills planned for this evening, so if the fire alarm sounds, please leave the building by the nearest exit and assemble in the Queen's Gardens at the front of the building. Please do not re-enter the building until you have advised to do so. I would also like to remind members of protocol around speaking during this meeting. No member should speak until invited to do so by myself. If you wish to speak, please could I ask you to raise your hands high until you have been acknowledged. Please would all members in the rooms use their microphones whenever they speak, as without them, anyone watching online will not be able to hear you. To use the microphones, please press the button at the front of the centre when invited to speak and wait at the moment for the light on your microphone to come on. Please remember to turn off your microphones once you have finished. Please could I ask at the end of the meeting to make sure that you take all your belongings with you and your waste with you. Thank you. We will now commence the business for this evening. Turning to the agenda, now members, and starting with agenda item 1, I have apologies from Councillor Gary White and Simon Jones. Councillor Jones, do we have any further apologies, please? No. The next agenda item is item number 2, declarations of any interest. Are there declarations of interest from any members or officers in relation to the items of business contained in this agenda? Agenda item 3, members, is to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of November 2023. You will find those minutes on pages 5 to 14 of your agenda. Can the minutes please be agreed? Thank you.
Sorry, can you put me as attended for the last meeting, please?
I will do.
Thank you.
Rebecca Lewis, thank you. Members, my civic mass will be held on Sunday, the 25th of February at the Holy Trinity Church on London Road, commencing at 11 a.m. If you would like to attend, please would you let my secretary, Jeff Durham, know as soon as possible, please, to ensure that adequate seating is reserved. Thank you. Members, we now turn to the next item of business on this evening's agenda, which is the Council Annual Report. A copy of the report can be found on pages 15 to 18 of your agenda. For members viewing electronic copy, the annual report can be accessed via the link at paragraph 13.1 of the report on page 17. Councillor Tagg, can you please now introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, everybody. This is the first annual report which covers the 2022 to 2023 financial year, which outlines the progress we've made in delivering the priorities for the borough during the year 1 of the 2022-2026 council plan, which is based on the manifesto pledges that the Conservative group took to the people of the borough in the 2022 borough elections that came out of that with a majority to run this council. In that council plan, we set out to deliver an ambitious programme to transform the borough and the council, making the most of that £50 million once in a generation investment in Newcastle and Kids Grow through town deals and future high street funding, delivering our One Council transformation programme, driving that improvement in services and also achieving budget savings against a backdrop of inflationary pressures so that we can keep the council tax down, a key pledge which we've got as an administration, and then working with our partners across the borough to deliver our best outcomes for our residents, whether that's via a vulnerability hub, award-winning vulnerability hub, or championing residents' concerns, as we're doing with the ongoing issues over Wally's Quarry. In presenting this annual report, Mr. Mayor, I can confirm that we are progressing well on delivering against those priorities. And don't take my word for it. Members will recall welcoming a group of peers from the local government association to this council who reported that staff and members of the council are clearly focused on delivering positive outcomes for the borough and our communities, and there are sound finances and exemplary partnership working. That's not us saying that, that's independent peer reviewers. And in that excellent peer review, which shows how far this council has come since 2017, when it moved away from the diver and the drift of the previous administration, when we couldn't even run an election properly, we're now seen as a leader in a number of areas on policy and on the way we run this council, and the Vulnerability Hub is a key example of that. Mr. Mayor, this annual report details some of the solid achievements during the first year. I highlight some of them, and Cabinet members are also going to highlight some in their areas as well, but we secured that abatement notice in relation to Wally's Quarry odour problems during this period 22 to 23, with that mediated settlement with the operator. And we're the only local authority as yet to win an abatement notice and get it in place against an Environment Agency regulated site. And we'll obviously have the opportunity to later under the leader statement to discuss the current situation, which of course members are very concerned about relating to Wally's Quarry. We've also delivered a further 4.6 million in UK shared prosperity funding monies, which are being used to fund projects across the borough, including in the town centre, supporting culture and heritage, skills development for local people, and supporting the most vulnerable in our community, as I say, across the borough. We set up a new neighbourhood delivery team to carry out effective targeting of enforcement action, supporting this effort, our efforts to maintain high standards of street cleaning across the borough all year round. So now I do see Stoke City Council, since they come in, they did their 100-day splurge on fly tipping. I think they'd like to carry it on now because obviously you can't just do 100 days, sorry. But I think here we do it all year round. We target grot spots, and that's credit to when Trevor Johnson was portfolio holder that he brought in that grot spot targeting, and we do it all year round, not just at election time. We won gold in Britain in Bloom for a second 20th consecutive year, paving the way for the further success which we had later in 2023 when we won the national finals. And we're making progress in our emissions reductions with a switch to HVO, hydrogenated vegetable oil, for our waste fleet, and advancing our tree planting strategy. Really gathered pace, I think, during this year 22 to 23. We've secured the reopening of Kids Row Sports Centre, and with the centre currently thriving under community management. We reduced rough sleeping from 49 individuals to single figures, and successfully obtained Safer Streets funding to continue our work in addressing antisocial behaviour, particularly in the town centre. And of course, we kicked off our 850 anniversary celebrations during this period of this annual report. And also we have advanced plans for regeneration of Rycroft, York Place and Midway with our blueprint, and we're now entering delivery phase on those projects. So thanks go to all the hard work, of course, of officers and members that have been involved in this during this period. And Mr. Mayor, it's not really hard to stray from the current year when we think about this, because we are looking back to 22-23, and you'll see one of the recommendations in the report is that we do bring this annual report in September, obviously following the end of the financial year. We have to wait for the audited accounts, etc., before we can bring an annual report. And I think obviously it's almost a year since the year end we're talking about here, so that will happen. But I think it's safe to say that the progress the council made in 22-23 has set a sound foundation to deliver the key projects that we're involved in, and also the improvements over the coming years. And I'm proud to commend this annual report to the council this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Councillor Sweeney, would you like to second the recommendations, please?
I would love to second it, Mr. Mayor. If I could just say a few words. This report is full of good stuff. It's stuff that we do. We don't sit on our laurels and sort of let things just get away. We actually drive the thing forward and do it. And there's so much stuff in this report. If I can just highlight a couple of things that really impact on me. One of them is finances are healthy, they are actively managed, putting you in a stable position. That's the corporate peer challenge review on the state of our finances. On a similar sort of breath, we have a One Council scheme at the moment. One Council is Spend to Save programme with an agreed investment of £1.2 million. But that £1.2 million generates savings each year of £1 million going on forever. And I think this just goes to show this council doesn't let things happen. It makes things happen. It doesn't wait for something to go wrong. It says, well, hang on a bit. Let's just take £1 million out of our budget, and we'll do it so that when bad times come, we're prepared for it. And that £1 million savings, 1.2 million, £1 million forever, is a fabulous idea, and it shows the foresight and competence of this council to come up with these sort of things. The last thing I want to really talk about, so I don't want to steal anybody else's thunder, and everyone knows bits, but is of course our multi-award winning market that is going from strength to strength. And I encourage anybody on a Sunday to go down, certainly with the RSM market on a Sunday. It'll be rammed, the place will be rammed. And I've always said this, if you give people something they want, people will come to it. And I absolutely recommend people to go. But there's other markets. We have the general market. We have the record fair. We have the dog rescue, the vegan ones. There's loads of stuff going on in the town centre. I absolutely commend this report. But this report is just excellent, and it's just full of things that this council has done and not sat on its laurels at all for the last few years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Members, we now move to the debate. Would any members wishing to speak, please raise their hands. Yeah. Yeah, I've got it. Yeah, I've got Williams. Councillor Heaton.
Thank you. I'm sure you all know what my portfolio comprises of, so it's with a lot of pleasure that I'm happy to see some positive changes during this annual report year. Safer Spaces, the Vulnerability Hub and the Night Shelter in particular have had such positive results, it's incredible. Culminating in a visit from the former Countess of Wessex, now the Duchess of Edinburgh, who visited Safer Spaces and the Vulnerability Hub. She met the volunteers, officers, other agencies and homeless service users, and was very interested in the work that we're doing. For myself, it was an honour to meet her, and I think everybody that met her saw how interested she was and impressed with the work we were doing. It's not only the Duchess of Edinburgh who was impressed with the work Newcastle Council are doing with the Vulnerability Hub, but the leaders already touched on it. The LGA Peer Challenge team consider the multi-agency Vulnerability Hub as sector leading and a great example of strong partnership work, delivering impressive outcomes with partners to address homelessness, rough sleeping and health and wellbeing issues. How impressive is it that Newcastle Borough Council is held in such high esteem for how we work with vulnerable people? I am impressed with our rough sleeper outreach team and our officers and thank them for their hard work, the amount of time, commitment and passion that they give that's helped us to find the funding and excellent outcomes with vulnerable people, and particularly with rough sleeping reducing, as the leader said, from 49 to single figures. And that's mainly through the work of our homelessness team. The hub provides, I don't know how much you all know about the Vulnerability Hub, but it provides vital cross-agency collaboration, helping vulnerable people to find the right support within the borough. It runs every Tuesday and Thursday, and for the first hour, partners meet to discuss and problem solve complex cases. There's over 25 partner agencies regularly using this hub to share their services and skills. And at 10 o'clock, that hub opens for service users to access food, advice, healthcare, support, and now shower facilities. During the year of this report, we were fortunate to have C2CH, a veterans charity, running a night shelter from November to March, where we were able to work with entrenched rough sleepers who would not normally engage. It was a huge success, and as a result, they engaged with services and housing. And finally, the Safe Space launched in 2022. I volunteer there, as I'm sure you've heard me banging on before. And it was funded through the PFCC. It's open on a Friday night in the Iron Market, and it's It's been absolutely brilliant. It's been well attended as a safe space. Street medics work out of it on a Friday, and that's reduced the use of the ambulances and policing appropriately. It's still running, and anybody that would like to volunteer, I'd encourage you to do so. And I'm sure you'll agree with me that these projects and initiatives are something to be proud of as a council.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is on 2.2, corporate leadership, creation of the neighbourhood delivery teams. Could somebody tell me who they actually are, what they do, how we contact them, and are they like the old neighbourhood teams we used to have, where every ward had a team? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gorton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Far be it from me to rain on anybody's parade, but I think there are some sort of procedural sort of questions and sort of issues that I'd like to raise, and I'd be sort of grateful for a response on. The recommendation this evening before council invites us to receive and consider the annual report for 22-23, but of course this report is already in the public domain. The version of the annual report posted on the Borough Council's website is not marked draft or under consideration or even subject to approval. The report before us this evening describes the annual report as an important stakeholder document, and I'm sure that's true. But can the leader explain why members are being asked to consider a document which has already been published? Does he not agree that to publish first and then get council's approval afterwards is rather poor practice?
Skelding.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to make a couple of comments, actually. I'm glad to receive this report for the first year of the council for 2022 to 2026 council plan. And you know what a great year it's been. There's been so much achieved in what was the 850th year of the borough. A few items under my portfolio, the leisure, culture and heritage portfolio, things that have gone on at the Brampton. We've had a well-structured schedule that not only brought an unprecedented footfall to the area, but had an increased focus on what's already a busy diary for exhibitions and events carrying on throughout the rest of this year in 2024. Along the way, the borough has received awards that Simon previously mentioned for Britain and Bloom, giving us an opportunity to develop initiatives that may be carried out into the forthcoming year. Jubilee 2 continues to increase its membership, along with the Health and Wellbeing Centre that's providing to be a valuable service to the community, helping residents recover from various illnesses and injuries and improve their physical health. Now, providing courses designed to create social groups not only helps improve physical health, but helps to significantly impact the mental health of the residents of our good borough. I'm proud to be part of this administration with a council plan that invests in growth, development of the borough, and I gladly receive this the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Skelding. Any more questions, please? Nope. Councillor Tag. Oh, sorry. Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say, it's a really good read, the annual report. Very positive, looking to the future, which is always a good thing. It's wonderful to read on the executive summary page, the LGA Corporate Peer Challenge visit in March 2023, which highlighted our sound finances and exemplary partnership working. Our award-winning One Council programme continues to bring in financial savings and improved customer experiences. It's good to read we met 80% of our targets in 2022 to 2023. Our street cleanliness surveys were completed twice in 22 to 23, and our targets were met in all 4 categories. Detritus, graffiti and fly posting all received 100% survey scores, whereas litter, while performing lower at 91%, still met the target set. The survey data will be used to help us identify areas to focus on for cleaner streets. As the leader said, the annual report shows we maintained high standards of street cleanliness across the borough and set up the new neighbourhood delivery team to carry out efficient enforcement action to support this effort. The neighbourhood delivery team continues in its development with recruitment to key roles. We now have a Newcastle Marshal, a Kidsgrove Marshal and a neighbourhood Marshal, which supports the mobile multifunction team. This team also continues its work on priority neighbourhood issues, including fly tipping, household waste, duty of care, and abandoned vehicles. Once again, as the leader said, we made progress in our emissions reduction targets with a switch from diesel to HVO for our waste and recycling fleet, complemented by our urban tree planting strategy. And we are now well on the way to being net zero by 2030, with 50% plus emissions already achieved. I would say this annual report is a green report. Green because it highlights our progress towards being net zero by 2030, and also because any other borough or district council in England reading our report will be green with envy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tagg, would you like to sum up, please?
Thank you, and thank you for those comments, particularly the positive ones, obviously, in portfolio holders, and well done to them for the work in there, and the predecessors as well, who were in place during this part of the year. I think Councillor Hutchins has outlined the neighbourhood delivery teams and what they are. What I probably think would be good is if Davey could contact members with the contact details of those officers and the team that's set up under Roger Tate, who's sort of the lead officer on the neighbourhood delivery teams. And it is a new approach. And it joins it's not in, obviously, the Kidsgrove Warden, which Kidsgrove members will know has been there for a long time, employed by the Borough Council, but funded by the Town Council. And the idea was to spread that, starting with the town centre and then beyond here in Newcastle as well, to get that sort of on the spot dealing with issues as they arise. And also it's an enforcement body as well to deal with fly tipping and all sorts of things. So I'm sure we can, and David will let members know more about contact details and the team going forward. I think on Councillor Gorton, I don't agree with him in what he says. I think it's quite clear that full council receives and considers the annual report as we've done previously. And also he originally, first of all, goes to Cabinet as well for Cabinet to look at it as well. And this is a decision isn't required because you're receiving a report that looks back and obviously celebrates, I believe, in a positive way, the work that the council's been doing over the last year. And also it indicates the direction of travel that we're moving in, as I said in my introductory remarks, and you can clearly see that as we move to delivery, particularly over the next year on some of the regeneration stuff. So I think I'll just end by saying what Councillor Sweeney said in his bit about it's not just waiting for things to happen. We make things happen in this council and move things forward, and that's only for the benefit of our residents of the borough right across the borough. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. The recommendation has been moved and seconded, so we now move to the vote on this. All those in favour, please raise your hands high. All those against? And any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you. Members, we now turn to the first substantive item of business on the evening's agenda, which is the polling places review. A copy of the report and associated papers can be found on pages 19 to pages 50 of your agenda. Councillor Simon Tagg, will you please now introduce the report, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. A report we receive every year, obviously, as part of the review of polling districts and polling places, as part of the Parliamentary Constituencies Representing the People Act. This comes every year, and it does go. People are allowed to put in comments and suggestions. Local members have been informed about it as well. There are the changes that are in the appendix attached are in the darker colour to show where the changes are. But it's really important that we have nearby polling places for people, particularly out in the rural area. And I think, as you can see there, the changes are clear and what wards they represent and what parts of polling districts they represent. But I have nothing further to say other than I move the recommendation that we approve the amendments to the polling districts. They will be in place for the Police and Crime Commissioner elections in May. And then, of course, we know we're having a general election sometime this year, so they'll be in place for those as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Councillor Sweeney, would you like to second the motion, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very happy to second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Members, we now move to the debate on this item. Can I ask you to indicate by raising a hand if you wish to speak, please? Councillor John.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I note that at least one of these polling stations is being relocated back into a school, and I just wondered if the returning officer or deputy returning officer would like to make a comment on moving back into schools and what impact that could have on the pupils that go to school there.
To do that. We've tried in putting this together to minimise the use of schools because of the impact that it has. Because for some schools, they actually need to close, others are able to accommodate. So we do try and keep it to a minimum, but where there are no alternatives, then we need to use the local schools.
Thank you. Councillor Tagg.
Thank you. I think from my recollection on that school, I think they actually were quite happy to take the polling station back there and actually did request that. So I think on that, that's a positive. I know there are other schools which, I know in my former ward of Maybank, there used to be a couple of schools that we used, and now we use the porta cabin in the school car park, and then there's a completely different venue from Maybank Infant School, for example, and we've seen it in other areas of the borough. So I think it's up to really what the local feel is in the school, and I think on this case, the school are quite happy to take that back. So,
thank you. We can now put the proposal to the vote, please. All those in favour? Please raise your hands high, please. That's carried. Thank you. Members, the next item of business on this evening's agenda is the leader's statement. A copy can be found on pages 5 to pages 7 of your supplementary agenda pack. I'm going to ask Councillor Simon Tagg if he would like to introduce his statement. I will then invite members to put questions to the leader or relevant portfolio holders. I will take each paragraph of the statement in turn, and this will invite up to 3 questions at a time before I ask the leader to respond. If I could remind members, this isn't a debate. Once the leader has responded, there is no right for members to reply. Councillor Tagg, would you like to introduce your statement, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just in moving the statement for comment and questions, I just refer back to the annual report when I said, and also what Councillor Sweeney said, we make things happen in this council, and this statement is all about that. And I welcome any comments and questions, and obviously we'll answer them as per usual, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Members, we note in paragraph 1 that the Cabinet met on the 5th of December 2023 and the 16th of January 2024. Paragraph 2 is about Wally's Quarry odour issues. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 2, please? Councillor Betley-Smith. Yeah, we do. We'll get to the side.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just bear with me, Robert. Yeah. Can you put your hands up if you wish? I think we've passed that, haven't we? Yeah. What should we do it? No, we don't. That's fine. Right, can you put your hands up if you wish to actually speak? So we've got Councillor Brown, Box Hewitt. Anyone? Robert Betley-Smith, Andrew, anybody else? And Mr. Adcock. And Lawley, yeah. Yeah, I've got them. Thank you. Right, Councillor Robert Betley-Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In welcoming the leader's statement and thanking him for his outstanding efforts on our behalf, whilst also acknowledging the excellent work of both our Borough Council officers and Aaron Bell, our MP, on behalf of the residents I represent, and also on behalf of others as well, I must, given the current situation, ask a question of the leader about Wally's Quarry. Would the leader agree with me and at the same time also share my acute disappointment to the point of chagrin, along with Joan Wheeldon, my fellow Thistlebury Ward councillor, and Rupert Adcock, our ward councillor colleague for Silverdale, all of whom fret, along with me, that the stink from Wally's Quarry is as bad as ever. Further, would the leader consider the inactions of the EA, the Environment Agency, along with their defective and failed monitoring systems, which under-recorded hydrogen sulfide levels in the atmosphere and the other emissions being emitted from the site over a prolonged period, is totally unacceptable and an outrage. We were told hydrogen sulfide levels were below annoyance levels, but this was based on what we now know to be defective data. Despite what we encountered personally and residents complained about, assumptions were made by those in authority and by the operators that the defective machinery, along with its associated IT system, knew best. Does the leader agree with me that this now needs a formal public inquiry and is, on the basis of what has happened, pure post office? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Given the alarming news from the Environment Agency that the monitoring stations were calibrated incorrectly and therefore providing false hydrogen sulfide levels, have the council re-evaluated the new data and any links to ill health that the emissions may cause the community? And if so, can that report be shared immediately?
Thank you. Councillor Lawley.
Thank you, Mayor. Since the recent increase in complaints to both the council and the Environment Agency about Wally's Quarry, have the council approached Wally's Quarry to establish what the cause of the increase in odours and emissions is? And if so, what was the response that we've received?
Thank you, Councillor Lawley. Councillor Tack, that's your 3 questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bentley-Smith. Completely agree with everything you said. And of course, we did, on the back of full council, obviously last time there was a request to write to the Secretary of State. At the following cabinet, we upgraded that to write to the Prime Minister. I do make reference there that there's, and I can still say, as of today, we haven't had a response. So I've taken that up now with our Member of Parliament as well to try and get a response to that on the public inquiry point. I think, Councillor Brown, on the point to do with the data and the reinterpretation of it and the health impact, obviously, we are not doing that reevaluation. That's been done independently by a body that the EA have brought in. And once that is revealed, then obviously the health agency can give their view on the health impacts. And I believe we're looking probably now at the beginning of February to see that re-amended data from that period of when the monitoring equipment wasn't correctly calibrated, which again is a disgrace. Almost pure post office, as Robert Bentley-Smith said. And we await that. It was promised, early January, then mid-January. Now we're saying February. But again, once that data is available, health professionals can then look at it and give their view on it as well. On Councillor Lawley, again, what was the point? Sorry, on that one. Forgive me.
It was to do if we had actually contacted Wally's Quarry about the increase, and if so, what the response was. Okay,
thank you for that. Sorry, I forgot the detail of that. But we do, through as I mentioned earlier, the abatement notice process, there is an agreement where we obviously have, through our chief executive, have regular meetings with them, and we have, I can assure you, and Martin talked about this at the cabinet meeting, that he has escalated this up to them, and they're aware of the complaint data, they're aware of the spikes we're getting on the monitoring, and they have, again, but I will say, they have the EA as the regulator of the site, and are the ones that can obviously put measures into place to affect the site. But we, of course, have our abatement notice process, and officers are evaluating the latest condition and seeking legal advice on where we go next on that. And of course, we'll keep members up to date on that when there is a view relating to pursuing the abatement notice and how we do that.
Thank you. Councillor Adcock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I share the concerns of my colleague here, Councillor Bentley-Smith, and of the colleagues opposite about this situation. I welcome the statement by the leader recently and the actions by himself and Aaron Bell to put pressure on the government and the Environment Agency for some serious action here on Wally's Quarry. And I also welcome the additional money that's been put in the contingency fund. And I welcome the calls for a much needed public inquiry. Despite all the pledges from the Environment Agency that their contain, capture, destroy strategy would solve the odour issues, we're going into another year where many of our residents have had their Christmas period blighted by the awful odours and health effects emanating from Wally's Quarry, where data shows the annoyance thresholds being breached for up to a quarter of the time of people in their own homes living near the site. The EA strategy is clearly failing, and now even they seem to admit that Wally's is not working towards compliance in a timely manner, the site being in Band F for a third year, where the definition of Band F is supposed to mean the site must make rapid steps towards compliance or risk losing their permit. Well, their definition of rapid must be different to mine. We've also seen the recent disturbing allegations made in the Guardian newspaper about the EA's alleged relaxed attitude to landfill inspections in order to meet performance targets. Although this may not affect the Wally's case directly, it does speak to a concern about the wider approach of the organisation. I would hope that the recent change in leadership in the EA might change things, and I welcome that Aaron Bell's already met with the new head of the EA and had a positive response. Right now, however, residents in my area and around Newcastle are fearful of the updated historical gas data, which is due to be released very soon, as there's a good chance that this will show this has been far worse than they were told, and this could have affected their health and the health of their children. I know of people who have moved away from Silverdale and the area because of the smell and how long it's been going on for. And I recently was contacted by a large local business near the quarry, which told me of the damage to its business and reputation, failing to get repeat customers due to the smell from Wally's odours. So does the leader agree with me that the situation has gone on far too long? We've had enough. Residents have suffered enough. The Environment Agency should release the historical data, release the results of their long-running criminal and regulatory investigations, and consider the strong case for a closure notice. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Weirden.
Thank you. I welcome with open arms the final paragraph of paragraph 2 on the Wally's Quarry update, where the leader says that Cabinet supported an increase of £300,000 as part of the budget proposals. That's planning ahead. That's being proactive. And it's very necessary because it then puts us in a position of strength to deal with what is a large corporation that is nothing more than a corporate miscreant. As well as being a member of the Borough Council and representing Thistlebury Ward, which is, along with others, is highly affected by what is commonly called the stink. I'm also a resident of Thistlebury Ward, and I'm also a member of the liaison committee with Red Industries, and spent some 2.5 hours down there being guided carefully around their site. They seem to believe that they're doing a good job, don't have any problems elsewhere, and wonder why people are up in arms at the continued smell. What I believe that they're doing is relying on excuses that have fallen into their lap, like the Environment Agency misguided way of using their either algorithm or IT, which again, Mr. Betley-Smith, Robert says, is another post office waiting to happen. So they're looking at the Environment Agency, it's their fault. They also mentioned, why were people allowed to build houses, developers allowed to build houses so close? That must be the problem. But actually the problem is down as far as the town centre now, where you can smell the dreadful noxious gas. They have no control over some of the kit on site that deals with the noxious gases. So there's lots of excuses that they're looking at. So does the leader agree that really these excuses are ridiculous, they are ill-founded, and they're actually hiding behind them and relying on the fact that they don't have to be proactive in solving a problem? They're just wandering along until 2025 when they think everything will be fine.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I don't know what to say on this. This has been a horrendous blight on the local community and residents, and I include myself, who and my family, who have to deal with this stink on a regular basis. I was sat here reflecting and thinking, you know, in 2017, when Stop the Stink really got going, and we had those first public consultation events, and I remember sitting there in front of the public, and their anger was palpable, absolutely palpable. And we sat there and we said, surely somebody's going to come in. This environment has to be protected for these residents. And we pushed on that, and the Environment Agency danced around with various reasons. First of all, the operator refused to accept that there was a stink. And then secondly, the Environment Agency not only did minimal to protect residents, but in a very brief period after that, granted the operator the ability to tip significantly more, under a situation where residents' complaints were through the roof. And then we raised about the health issues that residents were facing, and we got kicked back by authorities on that there wasn't any health impact of the site. Yet faced with the evidence that the local GP had to increase prescriptions of certain key medications, and we're not just talking about medications for respiratory disorders such as asthma inhalers, we're talking about the introduction of large amount of prescriptions of hypnotics, otherwise known as sleeping tablets, because residents couldn't sleep in their own homes for face of the smell. And yet nobody has come in to protect those residents. This council did, I honestly think, the biggest pride I've ever had as a member on this council was on the Wally's Quarry Scrutiny Group, chaired by Councillor Fear, who did an absolutely excellent job of chairing that group. And I felt that we had opportunity to bring agencies on board, to hear from them. And I felt like finally we are turning a corner, that we have now got the evidence that we need. And yet we find that the Environment Agency, not only did we have to fight for the installation of those monitors, that those monitors were not calibrated correctly, and that the Environment Agency was working off numbers that just were not reflective of reality. And then we face the situation where we call for inquiries, we call for government to force the Environment Agency to do their job. We have government ministers effectively telling us, no, it's fine, there's nothing to worry about. And we have to resolve to admonish government ministers. I think, for me, what happens that actually ends this for the residents? I agree with everything that that councillors have said across both sides of this chamber. The one thing I will disagree with, though, is that Wally's Quarry isn't a large operator. It's a minnow within the waste management industry. It is nothing compared to the likes of Biffa and Veola. Nothing whatsoever. It's a small company. Yet it has been allowed to have a significant number of breaches compared to other sites right around the country. What has to happen before finally residents' lives are protected? And I guess that is my question. What are we going to do? What are we going to do to finally put an end to this? Because it feels like we bring this up every 12 months and yet nothing is happening. And I'm not blaming the administration for this at all. I'm just saying, what's our plan?
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Fear. You've got three. Okay, we've got one more. So do you want to answer, Councillor?
Andy, obviously coming in the second, the next batch, I suppose. But the last three speakers, I completely agree with what they've said. And I think that 3 years since this council had its special meeting where we passed that motion, condemning the EA's lack of response over this after many years previously. Just sums it up, doesn't it? We've been to ministers, we've been to there's been that many ministers, we've been to Secretary of States. It's unbelievable. Our MP, as Councillor Adcock has said, has been fighting the cause as well. And I think Councillor Wielden talks about a time with the operator. I think the operator is the operator. They're there to make the money out of it, and they need to be kept in check by the permitting authority, that is the Environment Agency. They are the ones that has let us down here, and they're the ones we are trying to hold to account with the public inquiry, and also asking for them to take action. Now, there has been the mood change recently, and the way they speak. There was the announcement by them that was obviously picked up on social media and by the community about that they feel that the EA feel that Wally's Quarry aren't doing all they can. Let's hope that mood change sticks and they move forward on. I believe, as you see in the leader statement, as members have said, that there is a closure notice issued on this site, and then we take it from there. And then also that those outstanding legal investigations come to a head, so we can hold people to account for this. I think as a council, I think we can be proud of what we've done. I think as a council, the abatement notice, getting that in place was the key thing, and now monitoring that abatement notice, and as I said earlier, taking that legal advice to see where we take that abatement notice, and putting that money aside and beefing up that fund, of course, will be part of doing that. But I will again say, if we do pursue fully the abatement notice through what would be a lengthy legal process, possibly lasting 18 months, would lead to just a fine, not the closure of this site. We would need to come back to full council and get agreement for the money involved in that, and we will do that if advice comes from our officers who are seeking advice from King's Council, etc. on this. And we will do all we can within the powers we've got. But we have a lobbying and a pressure power, and we're keeping that pressure up on the Environment Agency, the Ministers, Secretary of State, up to the Prime Minister, and then obviously our MP is fighting the corner too. But everybody wants to see this to end. There seems to be a light at the end of the tunnel here with the EA's mood change. They now need to act on that. I think we're all calling on them to act on their responsibilities to, close this site and let's get on and cap this site for finally and restore it and bring that restoration plan forward, so we can move on in our communities and get out of this hole which we've got into over the last few years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Veer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I must say, like Councillor Jones, when this debate started, my thoughts turned back to that very early group that we had, and I thank him very much for his kind words, and also to draw to the attention that what came out of that was unanimity. Never have I seen this council more united than I have on this particular issue. I went up north over Christmas, New Year to visit my mother, and it was very saddening for me when I came back. The first thing I encountered, I think on the 2nd of January when I came back, was our friend the stink, and I thought, isn't this awful? As has been pointed out, and I think the most annoying thing for many people in the borough is that we've had to fight the people who are meant to fight for us. The people with the major responsibility here are the Environment Agency, and we have had no help from them at all. And we've had, as we've heard this evening, a litany of grotesque errors. And I think most people in this room, I hope everyone in this room would agree, if we did our jobs as badly as that, we'd have been shown our cards ages ago, and actually our employer might well have taken, former employer might well have taken us to court. Would the leader agree with me that now, I was going to say change of leadership, but I'm going to say now there is some leadership at the Environment Agency. In a way, we are all shareholders in the Environment Agency. We pay their wages. Would he agree with me that now it's time for them to show what they're made of, and that we can get a return on this? And I think everyone in this chamber would agree that that's the way forward. We do need these people who are meant to be on our side, for heaven's sake, to be on our side.
Thank you, Councillor Veer. Any more questions? Any speakers on paragraph 2, please? Simon, would you like to answer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I completely agree with what Councillor Veer has said, and I think that taking the politics out of it, I'm really annoyed that we haven't had a letter back from the Prime Minister, at least to acknowledge my letter before Christmas, and I've passed that on to our Member of Parliament. I received very belatedly in the last few days a Christmas card from the Prime Minister, which apparently there'd been a cock up at number 10 where a number of Christmas cards didn't go out to council leaders. So thank you for that, Rishi, but I'd also like a letter back telling you what you're going to do about the stink, mate, okay? So I'll put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Right, I'm reverting back to paragraph 1. Councillor Fox-Hewitt, your question or statement, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity just to raise an issue under item 1. I just want to express my personal concern with regards to the decision of Cabinet of the 16th of January with regards future delivery of communication service, in which it is proposed that this service is outsourced and managed by Staffordshire County Council. Now, I accept that constitutionally, Cabinet has the authority to agree this fundamental change without discussion, debate or vote. But I think this is an example of council business that should be subject to some scrutiny and discussion. And had it have been, I would have been opposed to the proposal, because putting aside the obvious concerns of not tendering out the contract, ensuring best value, and putting aside the incurring of a £7,000 increase on the council budget, there does remain the major impact on service delivery of this council. So I have a question, and it's around, the Borough Council internal communications department does play a vital role in disseminating information, fostering transparency, and ensuring that both our residents and employees are well informed about policies, decisions, and organisational impact or changes. But simply, it's a proactive rather than a reactive communication strategy. Now, this decision takes skills and jobs out of this council, something the annual report that we discussed only minutes ago claims is a priority in developing professional talent across our council. Now, I'm sure the leader will say that the county council have a track record of delivering communications. And he may be right, and he may have every faith in them to deliver this for us. But on the very same agenda paper of that cabinet is an example where the county council delivered a service that was inferior to our own delivery, that being the maintenance of grass cutting across this borough, one that we have had to then take back in-house. A crucial aspect of crisis management in times of emergencies or challenging situations for the council, having a well-established internal communications department allows for swift and accurate dissemination of information to all our relevant stakeholders. This helps in managing the crisis effectively, mitigating potential misunderstandings, and crucially, maintaining public trust in our council. This will not be served by having to defer requests to the county council, whereby Newcastle Borough Council will naturally not be their first priority. I think this is a step back for the council and its ability to deliver. And I would ask the leader, can he engage in a small stakeholder consultation, including members, external partners, local businesses and residents, before committing to outsourcing this vital element of council delivery? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fox-Hewitt. Councillor Tagg, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I don't recognise a lot of what Councillor, I know he's had his little tantrum so he can get this in now when he'd missed the opportunity. But I think, well, there's calling, isn't there? You haven't called it in. So there's an opportunity to call that item in. You haven't. If you read the report, you will see that the county council officers have been providing, I think it's about 12 months now, because of, we lost our communications officers as a whole. And one went on to maternity leave as well. So we had to bring in this cover. It's worked very well, I think. And, if we were to start to employ these posts again in this, I'd rather have, people out on the streets picking up the litter and doing enforcement work, all that stuff we talked about earlier. And the county has the capacity. They do it for other councils as well, not just us. And I think Councillor Fox-Hewitt should check his facts on the grass cutting. The county council weren't doing all the grass cutting for the borough across. It was actually a highways function, which we've taken from them and are doing it locally. So check your facts first on there. But I think, again, no to his request, because I think we've discussed it at Cabinet. It's been through the call-in process and hasn't been called in. And of course, I think what is appropriate would be, as we look forward through our scrutiny committee FAPs, as there's potential for it to be looked at in the future through the various scrutiny that Mark does. And of course, we'd welcome that as it goes on and becomes embedded. But I will say, I completely, it's not the case that we're second billing to anything that happens at the county. We have an officer from a comms office that's based here a couple of days a week to deal with the Newcastle only issues. And then he is also basically on call as well. We also tap into their social media team as well to ensure our social media is up to place. And I'm looking at the mayor there, and I'm sure you're very happy with the way the mayoralty is being promoted and is promoted very quickly as you require, Mr. Mayor, which hasn't always been the case because we haven't had the staff here at the Borough Council to do it. So that's an advantage there. So I completely reject what Councillor Fox-Hewitt is saying, and he's incorrect on some of it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Members, paragraph 3 is about the technology strategy 2023 to 2028. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 3, please? Councillor Burnett, Faulkner.
Thank you. I'd just like to say I'm really, really pleased that the council has committed on this technology strategy to continue to provide.
Councillor Burnett, can you speak to them,
Sorry,
please? Thank
to
you.
provide in-person access to council services, as this is important, as a lot of the residents, including my own father, do not have access to computers or the skills to use them. I appreciate that this is going to happen in Newcastle, but my question is, can the leader confirm that face-to-face contact will also continue for Kidsgrove residents? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett, Faulkner. There's no more questions, so Councillor, would you like to answer?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that, Councillor Burnett. And I think the technology strategy we're taking forward is a really good document. It brings together what we've had in the past in this council, which is an IT strategy and a digital strategy. There's no difference between those now as we move towards making sure our residents can access services 24 hours a day through the online website, making sure our staff are using the technology in the back office to ensure that those requests get dealt with very quickly. But I think you're quite right, Councillor Burnett, and it says in the report and in the leader statement that there are those people that, you know, we don't want to leave behind, and we're always looking to have, you know, phone access and also face-to-face. For Kidsgrove at the moment, obviously the refurbishment's taking place of the access there in Kidsgrove Town Hall. But once that's done, we'll be resuming the provision before of Tuesday and Thursday mornings face-to-face availability to members of staff on site when that reopens. But looking forward, as you're probably aware, and members will be aware through the Kidsgrove Town deal, there's a potential for a shared service hub and also different ways of working with the town council, with Aspire, and we hope to work with them to have a presence, continue a presence with them, and make better use of having multi-agencies in one building so that residents can go and get the services they want from multiple partners. But it's a commitment which we have here in this building, and also when it's refurbished up in Kidsgrove, and that's why we're refurbishing it, so it can be a nice environment for people to come to, and also also reduce our carbon emissions, which is something David is really looking at through Kidsgrove Kidsgrove Town Hall, not Sports Centre. And I think it's a really good improvement we're making there, and that's a commitment also to keep that face-to-face interaction for the people of Kidsgrove as we are for here in Newcastle too.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Any more speakers on paragraph 3, please? Nope. Members, paragraph 4 is about Chatterley Valley West. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 4, please? Okay. Councillor Brockett first, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is hoped that the projects at Chatterley Valley will fulfil the potential to generate these jobs because the area is clearly in need of these jobs. Can the leader assure us that priority, well, certainly appropriate consideration will be given to local developers and employers when constructing and populating these units, and that local employment opportunities in technology and logistics particularly will be considered alongside the need for profitability and regeneration? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Gorton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question too is about jobs. The second paragraph refers to the project's potential, I stress potential, to create up to 1,700 jobs. Mr. Mayor, we all want to see new investment and new jobs in the borough, but the reference in the leader's statement to the potential to generate up to 1,700 jobs seems somewhat speculative. Can I ask the leader of the council how this forecast was arrived at? And does he not agree that perhaps instead of sort of speculating about job creation, would it not be better if the Cabinet asked the Economy in Place Scrutiny Committee to undertake an objective assessment of the project with a view to identifying all the benefits? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gorton. Councillor Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Over the years, a number of capital investment schemes relating to Kidsgrove have been discussed, only to fail through lack of funding or other reasons. So when I speak to local residents, they're naturally sceptical about new schemes being delivered. However, I think that things have actually changed. The town deal projects are ongoing and funding's not being withdrawn. Chatterley Valley, notwithstanding a hiccup, and the third-party works as well on the way to completion. And irrespective of what the exact number of jobs is, ultimately this will be of great benefit to the residents of Kidsgrove and the surrounding areas, and they will bring about a huge number of employment opportunities. So all of this is good news and should be celebrated. Thank you.
Councillor Tagg, would you like to respond, please?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for those positive comments, Paul. Completely agree with you. I think on Councillor Brockie, obviously, one of the aspirations for the Chatterley Valley site is to have some bigger units on that site. One of the things we have in Newcastle is we have starter units, we have some medium size, but we don't have the bigger units for businesses within the borough who've grown to actually move to. So hopefully this Chatterley Valley West will enable us to do that. And as it grows and grows, that site will hopefully encompass those businesses. But also I think we can bring businesses in from the outside, which will be future jobs for people and different types of jobs and better skilled jobs as well. So let's not just be blinkered of businesses within Newcastle, but I'm sure there are some that could grow and move to Chatterley Valley in the future. As for the jobs and the claim of 1,700 jobs, that's included in the town deal business plan. I think if Councillor Gorton were to look at that, I think that's really key. And of course, looking at scrutiny, the town deal plans are scrutinised by the Economic Development Scrutiny Committee, so they can pick that up at any time. And they have looked at the town deal plan for Kidsgrove and for Newcastle on a regular basis, and I'm sure if Councillor Gorton asks them, they will look at that in more detail, and we'd perfectly be happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The closure of Peacock Hay Road for the last several months has caused nothing but misery to people in and around Talkenbutt Lane due to the traffic issues. We now believe that the road should open, and I say should, not will, in June. Can the leader assure the residents of Talkenbutt Lane that the road will open in June and will not be further delayed?
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. Any more speakers on paragraph 4? Councillor Sweeney.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is fabulously good news. 3.6 million from the Kidsgrove Town deal, 3.5 million from Staffs County Council, and generating circa 1,700 jobs. Okay, it might be 1,600, it might be 2,000, but it's still a substantial number of jobs. I know Councillor Stubbs opposes this, and he's welcome to it. It's his free will. I absolutely support it, though. I think it's a superb scheme, massive site. When you go up the railway, you can see it there being done now. I think it's great for Newcastle. It's 1,700, 1,500, 2,000, whatever jobs. What is bad about that? I cannot criticise it at all. I think it's absolutely superb. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Councillor Tagg.
Thank you. Agree with Councillor Sweeney, everything you just said there. Councillor Stubbs, obviously I understand the problem with Peacock Hay Road was obviously the original contractor went into liquidation or bust, and so the county council have taken over that. They've said June. I would ask him, obviously we're not a highways authority or responsible for that, but I'm sure David Williams, who's the portfolio holder for highways at the county, would welcome an email from him for an update and clarification so he can share with his residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more speakers on paragraph 4, please? No. Members, paragraph 5 is about the Borough local plan consultation responses and next steps. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 5, please? Thank you, Gorton. Okay. Gorton first.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just a very quick question really on the response rate. The report that went to Cabinet at the start of this month noted that 61% of respondents had replied by email, 28% by letter, and only 13% had actually used the online consultation portal. Was the leader of the council surprised that so few respondents used the online portal? And does he believe that the council should take note of this reluctance to use an online portal when the authority designs and launches other consultation exercises which may relate to issues other than the local plan?
Sir Brocky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Looking at the paragraph which applauds the necessity of a local plan to prevent a free-for-all scenario for developers, just to comment on that one. The responses to the local plan are not obviously all negative, but there was obviously a lot of responses involving concern about the nature of development in some of the sites that are available for it. Can we be assured that developers will be reminded of their obligation to contribute to or provide social housing, and that the level of their compliance, once decisions are made in the light of the feedback, will be appropriately monitored? Because that's our bit. The public's bit is to say what they want and don't want, and then there has to be a judgment made on what is permitted, and that is obviously the way the procedure works. If there is not this active monitoring and hammering home the obligation of developers on sites which they have been permitted legally to develop on, if it is not emphasised that they have this obligation to provide or contribute to social housing, it really will be a free-for-all. And our own sites and those of neighbouring landowners, who won't be averse to selling some of theirs as well, will become targets for profiteering and poor ethical practice, which will be us falling down on our obligation to the public. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brocky. Councillor Northcott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening. As we all know, the government updated the National Planning Policy Framework, the NPPF, in late December. There's some interesting things to be gleaned from the text of the update. Particularly interesting for myself was the paragraphs around the housing mix, the increased emphasis on the need for older persons, accommodation for etc., and housing with care and care homes. Also very interesting was the clarity that's been established now about the length of time that neighbourhood development plans, NDPs, are valid. I think members will appreciate that clarity, particularly the planning committee and members that sit on that. But also, interestingly, housing supply and the councils at Regulation 18 stage of plan making now need to only demonstrate a 4-year housing land supply instead of 5. And authorities with an up-to-date plan no longer are required to continually show 5-year housing land supply. Another significant amendment to that was the additional buffers to housing land supply of 5% and 10% have now been scrapped. I have a question perhaps to the portfolio holder for planning via the leader. Will he be able to reassure us and members here tonight present, will the changes to the NPPF have any impact on the progress of our local plan?
Thank you, Councillor Northcott. Councillor Tagg, that's your 3 questions.
Okay, thank you. I'll hand those 3 questions to our portfolio holder who's going to answer those.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be told, no doubt, if I go over the questions that I'm not meant to answer. But first of all, the survey. I'm still going to say we had an excellent response to the survey, and our officers are now busily working their way through that. In fact, the annex to our previous cabinet report, best part of 250 pages. So we are coining in our pledge that we would take all these comments seriously. They're there. They're being done theme by theme. Obviously, it makes no sense to use officers' time to say the same thing 3 or 4 times. Grand if you're a parrot, not so good if you're a local government officer. As regards this form of response, it is interesting. I agree entirely. What I will say is that when we designed that portal, we built on The teething problems that we'd had with the previous portal, I've no doubt that if there are further problems, that you know, nothing is perfect in this world, that there can be some improvement in that way. What I would say, of course, is also there are questions of generations here. When I like to do a survey, I like to put pen to paper. No doubt when I'm pushing up the daisies, people will think that pushing paper is a crazy thing to do as well. We got a lot of emails, which to me suggests that people perhaps prefer that form of e-communication. But there's an old saying, isn't there? You can take a horse to water, but you cannot make him drink. So if people prefer to write in, we said, and I'm really glad that we didn't have some of the negative propaganda we had about the first consultation saying that you can't write in. You could then, you certainly could the second time, and that number shows that that's the case. So certainly, I think, you know, we can always improve things. We'd like to do so if we're going to go in for another electrical survey, but I certainly don't think that this survey has been a bad one. Now then, as regards making people aware of their responsibilities, there is a difference, isn't there, between strategic planning, allocating areas where that we feel development is appropriate, and therefore, of course, protecting areas where we don't feel development is appropriate, from an actual application. In those applications, there are hard and fast policies about the amount of affordable housing and stuff we have. And if developers don't do that, they won't get their application passed. So I'd like to reassure the councillor that those checks are embedded in our policies at this moment. It's simply not the case you can ignore our policies. When the application comes in, our officers will check them. And one of the first things they'll do is they'll run across things like our commitment to affordable housing. And if it doesn't fit, refusal will be recommended. And what's more, it'll be a rock solid ground for refusal because there is that policy written out for us. I think I'm right in saying that I have been asked by the leader to talk about the MPPF. I looked, yeah, but so this is Councillor Northcott's question. Yes, at the end of the old year, there was an update to the MPPF. It wasn't quite perhaps as big an update as had been trailed in some of the press beforehand. I looked at this and I thought there is nothing here that is going to significantly change the direction and work that officers are putting in our local plan. And I indeed immediately checked with our senior officers to say, you know, this is my feeling. Am I right in having those feelings? And their answer to me was, yes, that is in fact the case. Now, as Councillor Northcott rightly points out, there are a variety of things here which have changed. So neighbourhood plans get an extension from 2 to 5 years with more weighting. And I think that we should welcome that. People put in an awful lot of work to do these plans, and it must be rather soul destroying to see it go away after 2 years. So a made plan will now have weighting for those extra years. Also, as the councillor has rightly pointed out, the housing supply figures, which have plagued us for so long, have changed as well. Because, and I must stress, Mr. Mayor, only because we are at the stage we are in making our plan, the so-called Reg 18 stage, the government, in its wisdom, has decided that we have to demonstrate not a 5, but a 4-year supply of land. Now, before we all celebrate about that, and it is something to celebrate about, and it actually justifies the way that we've pushed on with, as the government has recommended, with making ourselves a local plan, of course, unfortunately, there are lawyers. And lawyers are now getting awfully excited about how one calculates a 4-year supply. Can you simply scale the 5-year supply, or do you actually have to go through a different sort of algorithm to generate that? Different answers are emerging from different people. And I can assure Councillor Northcott, rest of us here, that our officers are on the case seeking advice in that regard so that we don't get caught with our trousers down. The other thing to remember, of course, is we are at where we're at because we're at this stage in the local plan. The 4-year idea will not last forever. It will last 2 years, in fact, at the time we've got to make our plan. So we're being rewarded for pushing on. We've got to be a little bit careful about how we see that reward, and we're checking out now how that can be calculated. Otherwise, yes, neighbourhood plans, made neighbourhood plans have got stronger weighting than they had before. And yes, we have embedded things to tell developers about their responsibilities, and we're not going to let them get away without facing up to those responsibilities.
Councillor Tagg, I've answered. Yeah.
Yeah, take the next set.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Councillor Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I certainly welcome the update on the local plan. Last year, when I was talking with residents in my ward, one of the main reasons given for opposition to the new plan and opposition to building new homes was that the last census said there was a decrease in the population of the borough. Can the leader confirm if this is still the case?
Thank you, Councillor Chris. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could I ask the portfolio just to elaborate on the planning applications come in and affordable housing is in that planning application? Because isn't it the case where the developer comes in with planning permission with the affordable housing included in that, and then a few months later comes back and said it's unaffordable, he can't afford to pay and build affordable properties? He goes to the public auditor, he agrees with him, so we end up with the site that should have had affordable properties are on that site. We don't get them. The second point is on the Cabinet asked independent consultants to review calculations of the number of homes required during the period of the plan, taking into account the latest national planning guidance. Now, will those consultants take into that calculation the type of houses, or is it in the local plan in another part of the local plan where memory serves me, we used to calculate on what type of houses are needed in, whether it's bungalows, the apartments now, family homes, 3-bedroom, affordable rented, all of those are set out in the previous local plan. Will those be, will the consultants look at those different types of properties, or just the number of homes required in planning guidance? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just really, Councillor Williams has asked a substantive part of the question that I was going to ask, but I guess I feel that it's important on this that I listen very carefully to the Cabinet member be very resolute about the policies that will sit within our local plan, a number of which I agree with firmly, certainly around the allocation rates of social housing within developments. Can the Cabinet member assure us that should that form part of the local plan, that will be entirely enforceable at planning? As Councillor Williams has commented, we have had a number of such conditions overturned, either by resultant reapplications by developers or by the planning inspectorate. Can the Cabinet member assure me that we do have this very cast iron, once it's in the plan, that's it and that's how it is?
You. Councillor Williams, can you turn your mic off, please? Thank you. Councillor Tagg, would you like to
Thank you. I'll address the first question from Councillor Crisp and then comment on the other two questions, then bring Andy in to just finally answer the point that's just been raised. I think thank you, Councillor Crisp, for your comments. And it's quite true that what we've just received from the ONS, the Office of National Statistics, which was included in our MTFS plan, show that Newcastle-under-Lyme's population is at 125,300. That's the mid-2022 estimate, an increase of 2,300 rounded up, 1.8% since the census in 2021. And that's similar to national increases we see in regional and county, which all saw increases over this period. And interestingly as well, because I know there's another concern people put forward about all these empty houses in the borough that we need to look into. But estimations show that there's been an increase in households in the borough from 52,600 to 53,400 as well. And that's estimated to go up to 59,000 and then to 62,000 in 2029 to 2039, which will be the period of this plan. So we have a growing population. So I'm aware of the comments made by some people that our population was falling. I think if you look back to the census, and we did some research on this, and university towns particularly saw a decrease in the census because at that time we were emerging from COVID and a lot of students were doing their studies from home. So that's been reversed as well. But I think it's clear our borough is growing, and that's what our local plan is looking to cater for, but a sustainable growth which we control, and not the city size growth which we were under Labour's joint local plan, merged local plan with Stoke, which floundered continually, and we finally got out of it in 2020 and are now pushing forward on our own plan, which is suited to Newcastle. Just before Andy comes on the affordable, I would say that our policies on affordable housing have been clear for many years, and they'll be in our new local plan. And I think we do challenge them where we can, but we are subject to the national planning guidance as well, which sometimes will trump our local plan and will trump what we want to do locally. And I think talking about being resolute, I would say Councillor Fear is known when he was chair of planning. Now his portfolio has been resolute on planning issues to protect our borough from overdevelopment and unnecessary development. So I'm bringing him in now to answer Councillor Jonesy's question.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Mayor. No one can promise something 100%. Now, we have got tough policies, and we will defend those policies, and our officers will defend them as well. Of course, any developer who has something rejected is entitled to go to the planning inspectorate and have an appeal. We can't stop them doing that. In fact, it would be quite wrong, of course, wouldn't it, to say you simply can't have an appeal, and we'd get in and well, we'd have no choice. We just can't do it. At that point in time, if they choose to appeal on those grounds and the planning inspector says that those grounds are valid, I allow this appeal. Once again, we have fought our corner. We have tried our best, but we can be trumped by other people. And with the best will in the world, no administration would be in any other position. So all I can say is we have every intention of fighting our corner. We will fight it very hard, but there are forms of appeal. After all, let's go back in this meeting a little bit. Wally's Quarry was opposed here at the borough. It was opposed at the county. And in the end, I'm afraid, on the various forms of appeal, it went right to the very top, and the very top said, no, you can have that. It'll be all right. We tried hard. And I think the people there, both at county and borough, at that time fought really hard for the borough, and we were let down. That can happen in the planning process. All I will say is I can give you 100% pledge on one thing. We will fight our corner for our policies, and we will try our utmost to get those through.
Thank you, Councillor Fear. Any more speakers on paragraph 5, please? No. Members, paragraph 6 is about the Staffordshire County Council urban grass cutting contract delivery. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 6, please? Okay, Councillor Williams first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I welcome that really good to see the Borough Council taking the grass cutting back in-house. And it complements the Britain and Bloom game with the Gold Award and Britain and Bloom to make the borough clean and tidy and nice to look at, and encourage people to come to spend money in the borough. But one point is it's an old potato, the grass verges. I've been in touch with the County Council. And they've emailed back from Amy saying they can't stop people parking on grass verges. They don't just park on grass verges, they plough the grass up. And one particular young lady near me, where I live, has turned the grass verge into a ploughed field, and now to stop mud on her shoes, parks away halfway on the footway. Been in touch with Staffs County Council, email back from Amy, it's not a priority, not interested. So can I ask the leader of the council, and again, I welcome the grass cutting back in house, can we do something about the grass verges and get some muscle or push Amy to actually do something about it, at the point of putting the white stumps down, which I worked with Councillor Johnson when he was our county councillor, where residents put white posts to stop people parking on the grass verge, and that worked. So can we ask can I again ask the leader to take this up with the county council and their contractor, Amy? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Parker. Councillor Williams, can you turn your mic off, please?
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and apologies for my late arrival this evening. When I first come to find out that this was coming to tonight's meeting, I was absolutely delighted, because I'm sure that my ward colleague of Westbury Park and Northwood would agree with me that we would welcome this, and we do welcome this, because for the last 3-4 years, it has been our most talked and complained about from our residents about the grass cutting. So I very much welcome it. I do thank the leader and the officers that have actually for all the work that they've done for regaining the contract back. But yeah, I'm sure that our residents will be really pleased that this is coming back to our borough for us to do. So does the leader agree with me that this is a promising step in the right direction? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Parker. Councillor Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, indeed. Does anybody not think this is a good idea? I'm Councillor Parker's county councillor for among other areas, Westbury Park, and to say that the local residents were displeased with the county council job. The county council, of course, are cutting their own grass. We're not doing it for us. It's their grass. It's their problem. And what an appalling job they did. When they first started, literally, and it's easy to exaggerate, but I'm not going to exaggerate for once in my life. The grass at Westbury Park was perhaps 2 foot high. So then they cut it down, and it's like a hayfield covered in mud. It's absolutely appalling. Now it got gradually a bit better, but the equipment they use is wrong. It just chews everything up. They seem to delight in doing it in the rain. I think to get it back into house, the Borough Council are doing it on behalf of the County Council, because it's County Council land, and we're going to do it for us. They'll pay us for doing it, and we'll have our usual high standard of work. I absolutely feel sure on that. I think it's tremendous news for Newcastle. I congratulate the leader and everybody else concerned on this, because I think it's a great deal we've got, and let's look forward to the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and also for the comments that have been made. I think key to this was ensuring we when we took the contract, that we had enough cuts per year. Historically, the county had reduced it to 6 cuts. We're now back up to 8, which was the previous amount when the borough used to cut the grass many years ago. The reason it was handed back because they were cutting back on the cuts, and we felt that was not something the Borough Council wanted to be associated with. But just to respond to Councillor Williams, if you'd read the Cabinet report, you would have seen that on the key routes and roundabouts, the Borough Council was still doing supplementary cuts off for free, just for our Britain in Bloom campaigns and for our tidiness of the borough. And of course, that will continue now across the borough with those extra cuts, with the local knowledge, better equipment, and the more frequency as well. and better coordination with litter picking. It's well worth litter picking a piece of grass to get rid of 2 or 3 bits of paper rather than 100 bits of paper after it's been chewed up by a rotor mower. So I think it's really good that we're moving forward on this, and I think all members are welcome it, and I think residents welcome it too going forward. And I think it's something which we can do a good job. And of course, it now goes over to the hands of our portfolio holder, David Hutchins, to deliver this for us from March. So no pressure, David. But I'm sure through our teams and the how we look after our own land shows that how we can do a good job. And of course, taking on back these highway verges, we know where they are. Our staff know where they are. The contractor, unfortunately, the county brought in didn't. They weren't supplied any information by the county council. A poor job by them throughout, I don't mind saying on this, and also by county council officers. And it's good that now we will have that extra cuts, better quality, more frequency, and hopefully happier residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. The leader hasn't answered my question. Instead of patting himself on the back, could he ask the question about the grass verges and the state of them? Thank you.
Councillor Tagg.
Yeah, well, that's a job for county councillors, isn't it? And I deal with that in my division of Westlands and Thistlebury. And I get as Councillor Williams said, the stumps put in place, whether the plastic ones, we've even had concrete ones put in place in appropriate places. County councillors have budgets for that. And also they can, if they haven't got a budget for it, they can make sure it gets raised with the relevant highways people on the grass verges. But we are looking at a lot of grass verges, are we not? And a lot that I know. I know Crossheath, I know Maybank, I know Woolstanton, I know Westlands, I know Thistlebury, I know in town. There are a lot of these that get chewed up by people parking on them as well. So, but I know where we can also get some posts in. So I would encourage, obviously, Councillor Williams to contact, his local county councillor as well to get some help and get that prioritised for his area, just as I do for my area and other county councillors do for theirs. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more speakers on paragraph 6, please? No, moving on. Members, paragraph 7 is about health inequalities grant projects. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 7, please? Yeah. Please. Yeah, anyone else? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The impact of damp and mould in rented properties, both private and housing association and council, has been well documented in many ways, and with it also the impacts on both the mental and physical health of the occupants. Can the leader inform this council how widespread these issues are in Newcastle-under-Lyme and what is being done about it? Thank you.
Councillor Rees.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very pleased to hear the news about these monies aimed at addressing the health disparities in the borough. One of the areas of focus includes resolving issues related to poor housing conditions, damp, mould and infestation. My question is, what's going to be the process for targeting those properties? Who's going to be making that assessment? Is it going to be based on the properties? Is it going to be based on people's health issues? I ask as one of the 10 targeted wards is in Woolstanton, the ward that I, along with Councillor Gorton, represent. I'm aware of flats off the High Street where they've had issues with damp and mould for several years now. One of these flats, it's a family with, I think they've got kind of 3 children under 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bryan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the projects relates to hoarding, which not only affects the individual, but also often neighbours in the wider area in terms of accumulated material and fire risk being some of the main issues. How will this project help to remove such risks? Thank you.
Councillor Tagg.
Thank you for those questions. I'm going to hand them to the portfolio holder, Jill Heason, in the first instance.
Councillor Heason.
Thank you, I think. Right. Obviously, I don't know if you're all aware of the 10 areas. Housing and health hotspot areas have been identified in 10 wards. And the 10 wards are Bradwell, Crossheath, Kidsgrove and Ravenscliffe, Town, Holditch and Chesterton, Maybank, Clayton, Crackley and Red Street, Silverdale and Woolstanton. So presumably, this is going to affect most people if they're aware of these kind of situations. The impact of damp and mould in rented properties has been well documented, with the issue being highlighted through the devastating case of Awab Ishaq, where the coroner concluded that Awab died as a result of prolonged exposure to mould in his family flat. The average simple SAP ratings for all private sector dwellings in Newcastle-under-Lyme is 55, which is the same as both England and West Midlands region. This presents evidence of a need to improve housing conditions in the borough with a keen focus on the private rented sector. Now, I don't know whether anybody knows what a SAP rating is, but to put that into context, the SAP rating is a figure between 1 and 100. The higher the SAP rating, the lower the fuel costs and the lower the associated emissions of carbon dioxide. So properties that score between 92 and 100 A rated and considered to be the most energy efficient. So for us to have ours identified at 55, it does show you that we do have a focus on the private rented sector with particular issues for damp and mould. The mould issues are dealt with once identified through either tenant complaint or proactive identification. Now that could be, they're at the property for some other reason and they pick it up there. So they can report this themselves, but many tenants fear complaining as they consider this may increase the risk of eviction. This project is to assist with providing alternative referral mechanisms through social prescribing from partner organisations, enabling the mould to be identified, investigated and resolved. Now, I don't know the exact referral process for this because this is in the process of being set up. But of course, as soon as that's out there, I can ask that the officers put it out for all councillors to be aware of the referral process. The second question, hoarding. The clearance of hoarded materials and possessions is one element, which is something the council already deals with. However, it's been identified that once resolved, a number of the cases unfortunately recur. It's considered that this is due to a lack of support and addressing the root cause. The project will provide additional support in order to achieve a behavioural change, to achieve an improved home environment, improved physical and mental health of occupiers with the removal of hazards to health and fire risk. So there'll be a reduction in numbers and repeat service users in relation to hoarding and providing a method for future use. Thank you.
Councillor Heason. Councillor Tagg.
Any more questions?
Nope. Oh, there is. Let's have a look. Nope. That's all.
Okay, just to come in on a point that was made about how are we sort of measuring this? And I think it was Councillor Rees that said that. I think we've obviously only just agreed this through Cabinet and obviously got the funding. So there will be a programme put together. And as Councillor Heason said, the details of the reporting mechanism for mould complaints, etc., are being worked upon. It would be good, I think, if Health Wellbeing Scrutiny Committee looked at this whole issues of alpha quality grant projects as a whole as we go along, and then those type of things can be picked up. So I think if the chair, I think, of the committee is here, if he's taking note of that, or it's raised by one of the members at the next meeting, I'm sure it can be put on their work programme to monitor this going forward. And as Jill said, she'd welcome that as well. So welcome the sort of the input of members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Any more speakers on paragraph 7, please? No. Members, paragraph 8 is about the 850th legacy. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 8, please? Holland first, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Delighted to hear a little while ago that the borough is a growing borough and there are more households here. That means that more people, more families will have the opportunity and the privilege of living in the best place in the world, which is, of course, this lawn and ancient borough. A very long time ago, when we started planning the anniversary celebrations, I was the portfolio holder responsible, and I hadn't held that role for a significant length of time now, but I would like to pay tribute to everyone who was involved in organising and coordinating, including you, Mr. Mayor, first as a member champion, and then in the second part of our anniversary year as the first citizen and the mayor of the borough. putting forward our best face at our time of greatest joy. Also to pay tribute to the administration for leading on it and for making sure that we really took it seriously, and the dignity and the celebratory air which was cast across our towns and our villages. Thanks also to the staff. I know that the leaders highlighted in the report the museum staff, but I guess also the team that delivered the Bloom programme that was crowned with such great success last year, and of course to thank King Henry II for his foresight and wisdom in chartering this town 851 now years ago. So it is great to see, as part of the leader's statement, that year will have a legacy. There's going to be something that goes on into the future. And of course, we can all celebrate every year that we continue to live and to work here in this wonderful place. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. Councillor Gorton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm delighted to say how much I welcome this part of the leader's statement. And I particularly welcome the stress that's placed on taking things forward from the 850th celebrations. It's reassuring that the celebrations last year have resulted in projects and activities that will continue beyond 2023. And I very much look forward to the relaunch of the Civic Society and the restoration of the Blue Plaque scheme. For me, the 850th celebrations reminded us of the strength and value of the Brampton Museum. I thought the series of talks on notable Newcastle citizens, which were held throughout 2023, were one of the highlights of the celebrations. And I think the council should recognise the contribution made by Elise Turner and her colleagues at the museum to the success of the 850th anniversary. I didn't get to every talk, Mr. Mayor, but I did get to 6 or so. And in my opinion, they were well organised, well delivered and well attended. And I think the level of interest disproves the claim that no one is actually interested in local history these days. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gorton. Councillor Fear.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'd like to wholeheartedly endorse what Councillor Gorton has just said. I think we had an excellent year, and yes, it has engendered a great deal of interest in our own heritage here in the borough, and long may that prosper. And what I was going to say is, well, before I do say that though, I mean, I agree entirely about everyone who's been thanked so far. Let's also wave a flag for some of those other organisations that were there, including, for example, our other museum up at Apedale, which was also involved in some of this material. And you know, it's a place I go to a lot. I'm always urge colleagues to go and have a hearty meal there, because you'll get a splendid meal served by very friendly people for an excellent price. But beyond that, I mean, like Councillor Gorton, I think, you know, and this is what I want to ask the leader, are we going to grow that interest? It would be lovely to see some of these extra things come back. I mean, I very much enjoyed the Historia Nomanis group. Not only did I enjoy them, I learnt a new Latin adjective. Who would have thought Nomanis was from the third declension? By gum. But, you know, are we going to see that go forward? And once again, I would welcome what Councillor Gorton says about relaunching a civic society. I think a non-political society interested in promoting our heritage is something that could come out of 850, and it would be a really worthwhile thing.
Thank you, Councillor Fear. Councillor Stagg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for those comments from the 3 members who have spoken. I think it's been a brilliant year, and well done to everybody involved. I overheard Councillor Williams saying, "Oh, here we go, patting themselves on the back again." I think it's not about that; it's patting everybody that's been involved on the back. And that's not just the council, that's partners, that's the museum staff, and all those councillors have been involved in this room as well, in it as well. So we've all been involved in it. I think taking that legacy forward is really important. And of course, at the last meeting, Councillor Gorton did point to the Civic Society, and I know the museum are going to set up an event for that. I know Councillor Fee is looking to go along to that as well, to see if we can. It should stand separate from the council, but I think it can be associated with our museum, which is obviously at arm's length from us, and hopefully we can see something come out of that. We're going to have our 2024 Borough Heroes Awards, and also coming up pretty soon is the the annual Chris Malkin Memorial History Lecture. And of course, that's named after one of our previous mace bearers and a former councillor Borough who sadly died suddenly not so long ago. And the first lecture will be about having the charters. So it's actually looking before we had the charter in 1173. And of course, Councillor Fee is asking me to ensure we carry on these, but he's hiding himself under a bushel there, because he's actually going to be doing one of the talks himself about Roman Newcastle, obviously involving Chesterton and the development of around the fort in Chesterton, which would have been the old Newcastle probably, we don't know. But as we know, Councillor Fee is very knowledgeable on Roman stuff, so to speak. So he's going to be doing one of those as well. So we've got to keep this momentum going, the legacy. And I think also, as it says in the leader statements, talking about such things as a time capsule, get our local school kids and scouts excited about burying that, so they'll be around in 50 years' time, hopefully to leave instructions to open it in 49 years' time, as it is now. So that'll be something to people to look forward to, as well as all the other things we can do to keep the spirit of 850 going along. And I'd like to thank everybody in this room that's taken part in it as well. We had our special meeting to celebrate the 850, and I know that that was percolated out into the community. And as it says in the leader statement, the number of people that were involved in 850 events is amazing, and we should try and build on that going forward, and we will do. Thank you.
Could I just say, Mr. Mayor, that the museum has a set of serious talks, so I mean that don't be put off by the flim flam from this idiot here halfway through the year. There's plenty of other stuff which is well worth going to.
Thank you.
So modest, isn't he?
Any more speakers on paragraph 8, please? No. Members, paragraph 9 is about the forward plan. Do members have any comments or questions on paragraph 9, please? No, gosh. Any more speakers on paragraph 9? No, we have none. Members, that concludes the leader statement. We will now move to the next item of business. Members, the next item of business is the report of the chairs of the scrutiny committees. This is an agenda item 8, which is at page 9 of your supplementary agenda. Reports are attached for the Health, Wellbeing and Environment Scrutiny Committee and the Economic and Place Scrutiny Committee. A verbal update will be given for the Finance, Assets and Performance Scrutiny Committee. Councillor Mark Holland, would you give your update, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The committee met on the 13th of December when business included an update on the delivery of the town deals and the future high streets funding and a report on the council's new technology strategy. The committee met again last week on the 18th of January to scrutinise the draft budget and strategies. And we will meet again on the 14th of March when we will be happy to consider bringing forward a programme to scrutinise the delivery of the council's communications service, as suggested by Councillor Fox-Hewitt, should members wish to make that a priority. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. These reports are here for information and noting. Please can the reports be received? Thank you. Members, the next substantive item of business is the reports of the chairs of the regulatory committees. This is agenda item 9. The report can be found on pages 11 and pages 12 of your supplementary agenda. Written reports are attached for the Licensing and Public Protection Committee and the Planning Committee. The Audit and Standards Committee has not met since the last meeting of the full council. These reports are here for information and noting. Please can the reports be received? Thank you. Members, the next substantive item of business is motions of members. A copy of the motion concerning banning live animals as prizes can be found on page 51 and 52 of your agenda. The motion has been proposed by Councillor Rupert Adcock and seconded by Councillor Tagg. Councillor Adcock, would you like to speak on your motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, it's a pleasure to propose this motion tonight. The motion in front of you seeks to promote animal welfare in our borough by taking a stand against the cruel practice of giving live animals as game prizes. In the past, this has been common practice at fairgrounds and carnivals, and the most common animal to win is a goldfish. In fact, I have a friend who about 10 years ago or so won a goldfish at a fairground. He then had to rush out, buy himself a proper aquarium, research the right food to give it, and this goldfish luckily survived and managed to live a very long, prosperous life. But unfortunately, that is the exception, not the rule, because the RSPCA has found that most of these animals are often intentionally or unintentionally neglected by their new owners, who of course weren't expecting to take on a pet on that day and hadn't the proper equipment or the right food or experience necessary to keep them healthy. And many of those animals sadly died soon after. The RSPCA report figures show that even in recent years, this practice still generates complaints to them in the UK. It was a few residents in Silverdale who'd made me aware of this campaign by the RSPCA recently to encourage councils to pass motions prohibiting this practice on council-owned land by making it a condition of any licenses issued to fairgrounds or similar that this practice must not take place, or adjusting existing licenses. So I'm grateful to those residents for drawing my attention to this, as I own goldfish myself and koi carp, and I know it's very difficult to get them the right conditions to keep them healthy with the water pH and the food, and it's certainly not something to be taken lightly. On further research, I see that an increasing number of councils across the country have passed motions in the last couple of years on this issue, including our neighbours in Shropshire. I know Stafford and Moreland are considering it. The London Assembly's passed it. Sunderland Council, Tamworth. There's many over the last year or two passing these motions. So it's becoming clear this practice is now outdated and should no longer be permitted on any council in any council-owned land. In any case, I think we'd all prefer to win a giant stuffed teddy anyway. And that's if you can actually win on one of those fairground games, which I never have. At present in England, the giving of live animals as prizes is not against the law, except in the case of unaccompanied children. So this motion also calls on the UK government to act to ban this practice nationwide, to make it clear, and to clear up any confusion, and to promote the growing awareness of animal welfare, and to promote good practice amongst fairground hosts, the vast majority of whom have already phased out this practice years ago. So I hope we can all agree tonight to pass this motion, make a statement on the impact and the importance of animal welfare. We all want to have fun at the fairground, but we can do so while still saving the goldfish. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adcock. Councillor Tagg, would you like to second the motion, please?
Yes, happy to second this and support Rupert on bringing this forward. And also the Conservative group will be supporting this wholeheartedly tonight. I think it comes down to the storage of and we Councillor Adcock's made the point about goldfish, the storage and the well-being. I don't think there's, I was thinking about how responding to this and seconding it, and Councillor Tagg Senior will remember when we used to go to the Icky Picky Fair. Councillor Williams will know about that as well. And I won a goldfish there, and I took it home and I tended it, and I got a bowl for it as it lived a long life, but that doesn't happen on every occasion. And I think also before little Jimmy and Johnny, whatever, get hold of it and take it home, it's been stored as its well-being, been protected, it's been fed properly and stuff like that. And I think this is a practice which is well past its date. And we know now through the pet superstores we have across the not in the borough, but down at Trent Vale, for example, and just on the retail pot there, that you can easily get a goldfish or a fish of any type now, or you can even go out to Bridgemere and get it there as well. So I think there's a different sort of we're in a different age now than we were back in the days when I talk about. And I think I've got concerns about the storage and well-being of animals given as prizes in fairs, and I think it should be outlawed. Our environmental licensing staff are quite happy with this motion. It can fit into our policies very well. And as Rupert has said, other councils across the county are considering it, and already a lot across the country have already brought it in. So it has my wholehearted support. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Members, please raise your hands if you wish to speak on the motion, please. Councillor Jones first, then Councillor Holland. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just before I start, I will state that the Labour Group will be supporting this motion tonight. I'd like to thank the councillors for bringing this motion before us. It is very true that the use of live animals as prizes, certainly within fairgrounds, is a traditional yet outdated practice. And as we see within the table, within this report, the numbers have declined quite significantly, whether that be due to underreporting or whether that be due to a change in trend or whether that be due to the fact that very few fairs occurred in 2020 due to national lockdowns, who knows. But of course, it is incumbent on us to do whatever we can in order to reduce the number of live animals being given out as prizes as such. There are a few things I would like to see, and I am going to propose an amendment that I hope that the mover and seconder will take on board. The first of which, in fact, the entire amendment, it rotates around the animals' welfare charters that a number of other authorities have used or have implemented on the back of similar motions. And I think it would be incumbent to include in the list of recommendations at the end that council agrees to, after banning outright, which I would entirely support, after writing to the UK government in order to ensure that this can also be banned on private land, which I would entirely support. I would encourage a final amendment line in there of developing an animal welfare charter for the borough. I think that would be something fitting on the back of this motion, and something quite fitting in our 850th year, as we look to many of our historical figures in the borough, which include, of course, the famous veterinary surgeon, Thomas Mayer from across the road, who developed the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons and the Veterinary Surgeons Act. So if the original movers of the motion would be prepared to accept that amendment, I would be more than happy to propose that we include development of an animal welfare charter for the loyal and ancient borough of Newcastle-under-Lyme in the just below right to UK government. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Jones has moved an amendment. Are we going to move to a debate
Yes.
on the amendment, or
Yes.
shall I speak to the motion?
Councillor Adcock.
Sorry, for Councillor Holland.
Do you want to agree on the amendments, what Councillor Jones has just put forward?
I'm happy in principle with the amendment. It's just, it's something we can also discuss in scrutiny committee, talking about creating animal welfare charter. But in principle, I'm happy with that.
Attack.
I think on that point that we don't have an animal charter at the moment, and I think committing to one now at council, perhaps it'd be better to use scrutiny to build one of those up and bring it forward. I think it's Rupert's committee it would come to as vice chair and chair with Ian. So I think it could be something which, if you're happy to accept that we do it that way, but we commit that we put one together and take it through scrutiny and bring it back which is basically what you're going to get what we want in the end anyway. It's just that I think it makes a mechanism for doing that, if you're happy with that.
The proposal was to develop one. Councillor Tark.
I think if Councillor Jones is happy to say that it'd be scrutiny that develops it through the Health and Wellbeing Scrutiny Committee, I think which we could take forward as vice chair would be good.
Yeah, well, perhaps we're splitting hairs. As the mayor thankfully pointed out, the amendment was to commit to developing, not to immediately do it, to commit to developing. How it occurs, I have no issue about, but I would like to see an animal welfare strategy for the borough. I think this is a prime opportunity to do that.
Well, going back to the first debate about being a doing council and going on with it, I think we should actually say how we're going to do it. So I would ask if Councillor Jones would like that and include to the amendment that scrutiny take this forward and get us this charter in place. And it's a solid recommendation to do something then, isn't it? And who's going to do it?
Yeah, I'd entirely support
that. Councillor Adcock, anything to add?
No, on that basis, we're happy to accept that amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Summing up. Yeah. Can we put it to the vote, please? All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? It's carried. Thank you. Agenda item is item 11. Members, questions. I have received 3 questions for the leader and cabinet members. These can be found on pages 13 and 14 of your supplementary agenda and will also show on the screens. I will ask the leader of the relevant cabinet member to respond to the question as shown. after which I will ask the member who submitted the question if they have a supplementary question. Could I remind members that if they have a supplementary question, it must be a question and not a statement, and it must be concise, focused, and relate to the subject matter of the initial question and answer. The first question is from Councillor Andrew Parker regarding antisocial behaviour and is on the screen. Councillor Stephen Sweeney, your response, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've actually got a two-page response, but I'm not going to. I'm going to paraphrase it. It's time is getting on. I saw this report, as did Councillor Parker, and I was very, very encouraged by it. I think it was a really, really, really good report, very, very positive, full of stuff. But Councillor Parker's asking for the sort of things that are happening in the town centre. Start off with a public space protection order that's in place now. Safer night, so for every night there's one sergeant and 6 PCs on the town looking after ourselves. Operation Salt Mine is 2 police constables for 6 weeks looking at hotspots. This is during the day. This has now been extended till March 24. A safe space, which Councillor Easton was talking about earlier. Street medics. Safer streets round 4. Now, this is basically things like extended CCTV, gating in the town centre, pruning trees in the town centre so that CCTV can work better, that sort of thing. Precision policing. This is the policing using their records and their data to target areas that they think are worth going to. And I think that's working very well. Obviously, security marshals, which we've all seen, another innovation that we brought in. And lastly, the weekly enforcement meetings. Now, when the police moved into this building, the great bonus, I've said this before a number of times, I'll say it again, that we could just walk down. Councillor Fear sitting next to me went down yesterday to speak to the officers there about something that was going on. And John Owen, the chief inspector, actually sits below us on the next floor down. And you just go up to and have a chat with him. It's open. There's no stuff hidden away. You can go and talk to him. And that's one of the great advantages of the police being in this building. So I think Newcastle is you go Newcastle town centre at night and there's a nice atmosphere there. You don't feel threatened. You don't think this is unpleasant. I really don't like this. It's not like that. And I think this is a change that the police have brought about. And it's all the agencies working together once again that's brought this. Thank you for the question, Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Councillor Parker, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thank the Deputy Leader for answering the first part of my question. And yeah, I agree with him. You do go down at night and it is quite pleasant. It is peaceful. There's no intimidation from any corner of the town centre. But does the deputy have any statistics to back up the good work that is being done in Newcastle?
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillor Sweeney, your response, please.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Parker. You'll be amazed to hear I have. This is by the police information. This is reduction in antisocial behaviour 10%, reduction in reported crime 3%, increase engagement with the community and businesses, and I think that's really, really important. Increase in CCTV cameras in and around the town centre, providing a vital tool in terms of collation of evidence for crime and antisocial behaviour. And lastly, improved partnership working and coordination of intelligence and resources to tackle crime and antisocial behaviour. Again, this is all the agencies working together to make Newcastle Town Centre the best place it could possibly be. Thank you, Councillor Parker.
Thank you. The next question is from Councillor Robert Beckley-Smith regarding Wally's Quarry and is on the screen. Councillor Simon Tagg, your response, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Beckley-Smith, for the question. I think also going back to the original discussion at leader's statement and Councillor Brown's question about the health agency and how we're interacting with them, I think my answer will put a bit more meat on the bone with that. Officers are in regular contact with a range of agencies involved in addressing the Wally's Quarry situation. Amongst those is the UK Health Security Agency. That's the agency which replaced Public Health England. And the UK HSA continues to assess assess the health risks to our residents each month with their reports, which are published on the EA's website. Members will be aware that the data collected by the mobile monitoring facilities was found to be unreliable due to errors in the calibration by the Environment Agency. We discussed that earlier. And the UK HSA has acknowledged that there is a greater degree of uncertainty with this historic H2S data up to August 2022 due to these issues. So it cannot rely upon this historic data for their risk assessments. Instead, the health has said they're only able to consider current exposures with the new rectified data set from September 2023 onwards currently. So the UK HSA's latest health risk assessment covers the period from that September to November 2024, concludes the risk of long-term health problems is likely to be small, but cannot be excluded at this stage. And they know that some people continue to experience short-term health effects. The hydrogen sulfide data from November 2023 shows continuing low-level exposure to the population around the landfill. And the two MFF sites show that's the monitoring site, show a monthly average concentration in November above the long-term lifetime health-based grievance value. The other site at MFF2 shows a monthly average concentration below this guidance value. Now, UK HSA recommend that all appropriate measures continue to be taken to reduce off-site odours from the landfill and to reduce the health impacts experienced by local communities. That's their statement. We are awaiting the findings of an independent peer review, as we talked about here, to see if the historic data can be adjusted to correct for those calibration issues by the EA, and findings are due to be released in February. To that stage, the UKSH will review whether or not it's possible to review their early health and risk assessments, and we'll be pressing them to come to a conclusion on that and give people some reassurances by giving that historic data from their point of view when they see it. We're all aware of the odours impact on the residents of and the quality of life of our residents, and in some cases the impact on their mental health. The council will continue to work with the UKSC and we can press them to make sure that all measures are in place to continue to be able to give the correct information and advice to residents, and that also via the EA that the measures are taken on site to reduce those odours from that landfill that are causing the problems. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. Councillor Bentley-Smith, do you have a supplementary question, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, I do. In thanking the leader for his response, could I ask him whether he's appalled that permission for this outrageous, totally unacceptable, noxious, pernicious, gas odour venting landfill scheme was even given planning permission by the then Minister responsible, John Prescott? Having been Chief Executive of the Government Decontamination Service, which is part of DEFRA, and having dealt with landfill sites as a chartered surveyor working for the then Ministry of Agriculture, we don't need the benefit of hindsight, nor did John Prescott need the benefit of hindsight to know that such sites pose significant environmental and public health risks. That is why in Essex and probably elsewhere, landfill took and still takes place on more remote sites. Therefore, would the leader agree with me that John Prescott and or his Labour colleagues appear to have had no regard whatsoever for the environmental and public health consequences of his or their decision to grant permission for Wallace Quarry landfill, and that they did not even consider the economic impact on Keele University, local businesses, or the social impact of this disastrous scheme on the community?
Can we talk about that?
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Bentley-Smith. Councillor Tagg, your response, please. Councillor Bentley-Smith, can you turn your mic off, please? Thank you. Councillor Tagg.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bentley-Smith, for that. I think, Councillor Fear touched on that, didn't he, when we discussed in the leader's statement that all councillors, no matter what persuasion they were at the time on Staffordshire County Council, which I believe was Labour-led at that stage, and also the Borough Council here, which I think was Labour-led, and it was novel in those days, was Labour-led, was also as a consultee came out against this, and then it went to the Secretary of State, and that was overturned. And the Secretary of State, no matter who that was, it was John Prescott at this time, was taking advice from civil servants and predecessors of the EA or DEFRA or wherever they were then. That was the wrong decision. I don't know whether they visited the site to have a look at it, but anybody could tell you that that was the wrong location. This is even before those houses were built nearby. We're talking about houses that were there for 50, 60, 100 years that are getting the effects of this now because it's in a valley, and the weather conditions and the contours of the site have led to this. So there were serious errors made in 1998 that have led to where we are now. And I completely agree on Bentley Smith on that those should be held responsible for it. And, you talked about in your original question on the Leeds statement, Councillor Bentley Smith, about the post office scandal, a different type of scandal. But I think it's just needs to be beared in mind that, if this ever comes to a public inquiry, and also if it's ever the subject of a detailed television, that those people are held to account. And I think we as a council during our period, which, started in really 2020 when the council made its decision, but also all those councillors have served on the liaison committee from all parties since I go back to 2007 on there. We've been hammering this case since the odours really started around 2010 onwards and came, ebbed and flowed, and then went really bad in 2019-20 until where we are now. That we've all done our best and that we can hold our head up high, and that others must be investigated for this and be held to account dating back a number of years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tagg. The final question is from Councillor John Williams regarding the subway by the Rycroft development site. Sorry.
The Tories did do deregulation of the Act in 2015, and yet you've allowed him to come out with all that rubbish.
We're moving on. The final question is, again, it's from Councillor John Williams regarding the subway by the Rycroft development site. Councillor Sweeney, your response, please. You certainly can do. Councillor Sweeney.
The subway will reopen in November 24. Development is taking place very close to the perimeter of the site, so blocking off pedestrian access in that area is a safety measure. The hoarding works and positioning are in line with the consented scheme that Staffs County Council commented on its role as highway authority. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. Councillor Williams, do you have a supplementary question?
Beyond the development site, in my view, I've seen a lot of sites that have been boarding around. This is well over the site, and it's a dangerous piece of equipment, this fence. Not only with the last paragraph about the dangerous road, a bend, a blind bend as you come out of the road onto Rycroft, and the hoardings go across the footway, and no, they go. I've said they go out of the site onto the footway, and if we get out there, still the 6 months of people not accessing the town centre. It goes everything what you said about the town centre, what you're trying to do. You're actually dismissing what you said about the town centre, encouraging people to shop in the town centre, and by blocking off this subway. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Sweeney, your response, please.
If I can just reiterate what I've just said, the hoarding works and positioning are in line with the consented scheme that Staffs County Council commented on its role as highway authority.
Councillor Williams, can you turn your mic off, please?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Members, agenda item 12 is our next item to receive petitions from members. I have not been made anywhere or to be handed in this evening. Members, agenda items 13 and 14 relate to urgent business and confidential business. I have no urgent or confidential business that needs to be considered this evening. That therefore concludes the business for this meeting, and I therefore declare the meeting closed. Thank you.
All right.